right, everyone, this is Maddie here from Inspiring Capital. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for this webinar about our Summer 2018 MBA Fellowship Program. Really excited to get a chance to talk about the summer with you guys, make sure that I get all of your questions answered and all of that good stuff before applications are due on December 11th. So kind of just how the webinar is going to work. I'm going to keep you guys muted and off of video throughout the whole session. It just keeps things a little bit easier. So kind of for communicating throughout the session, we're going to be using the chat feature of Zoom. So I'll type into the chat box now, type your questions here. So if you have any questions throughout the session, we'll definitely do questions at the end. But any other kind of reason to communicate can go through the chat box. You can send those directly to me or to the whole group, whatever you prefer. And so that will be the best way for us to communicate throughout the webinar. So this is a bit of an overview of what our session will look like. I'm going to skip the video because it's a little hard to play during the webinar, but I'll send it out afterwards. I'll, of course, cover Inspiring Capital as a company, give you a better sense of who we are and what we do the rest of the year when we're not running the program. I'll talk more about the fellowship itself, of course. We'll do a bit of a little case study together. And then I'll, give you a sense of what some of our fellows are doing now. And then, of course, move into some of the details about the application process and what that looks like, and leaving plenty of time for questions at the end. So let's see. This is the video that I'm going to send out to you afterwards. It's also up on our website already if you want to take a look at it before I shoot out that email. So moving on to who we are as a company. Kind of as with any small organization, the story of Inspiring Capital is really also a story of our founder, Nell. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and start with Nell's story. So Nell comes from a background in the nonprofit sector. She worked at international nonprofits specifically for about 10 years, kind of doing a whole range of things from UN type work to kind of more direct philanthropy work at a traditional nonprofit. And she, of course, learned a lot during her time in that decade. She learned that there are a ton of super intelligent, well-educated people in the nonprofit sector doing great work, but that oftentimes kind of the problems and the issues would be way on one end of the spectrum, and then the money and the solutions would be way on the other end. And kind of by the time the money and the power and all of that reached the problems and the source, kind of a lot would trickle out along the way, and it wasn't a super efficient system of getting things done and of doing good. So she decided to go to business school to try and change that. And so she did. She did a dual program with Columbia and the London School of Business. And after graduation with an armful of student debt, she did what any reasonable human being would do, which is to found her own company. And that's how Inspiring Capital was born. That will be 5 years ago in June. We'll be celebrating with a big party. So if you're around New York over the summer, definitely attend. It's going to be fun. But anyway, so she originally founded Inspiring Capital with the intention of it being a consulting firm for nonprofits, specifically looking at earned income. So ways that these nonprofits can be making money other than, expecting donations to continuously come in. So with that in mind, she decided to hire on an MBA fellow, just one intern internally for Inspiring Capital to kind of help her out that summer. And she put out that application, and she got about 75 applicants in response to that one position. And so that's kind of where the fellowship itself came from, was kind of her realization that not only, did she want to be actively doing the work, but she wanted to be training the people who were interested in the kind of world of social impact and consulting and bringing business skills into the sector just as much as she was. And so that's where our kind of really cool hybrid model between consulting and training came to be. So now we are in our 5th summer of our summer fellowship program for MBAs. We're also in our 5th summer for a summer fellowship program for undergrads that runs concurrently to the MBA program. Throughout the rest of the year, we run a program for women reentering the workforce and doing trainings with them because they're interested in potentially moving into social impact. We also run a training program similarly for working professionals who don't necessarily want to quit their jobs, but at least want to learn how to become more engaged in what they're currently doing. And we are launching our B2B offering to bring our trainings directly into corporate workplaces. So we're pretty busy, but it's a lot of fun and really exciting to be doing great work. So to talk a bit more about the summer fellowship itself, like I said, this will be our 5th summer running in New York, but it will also be our 2nd summer running in the Triangle area, Raleigh-Durham in North Carolina. So kind of the only difference between the two programs there are in the dates. We run an orientation week at the beginning of each program, and so we want to make sure that we are able to be at both orientations, so that's why the dates are different. Otherwise, kind of moving forward, the kind of all the details for the programs are the same. So what does kind of week by week the fellowship look like? So just like we as a company, we consider ourselves kind of a hybrid between a training and a consulting firm. The fellowship itself really reflects that. So it's a hybrid between a consulting program with training in there as well. So 4 days a week, you're working on your consulting project. Each of our MBAs is paired with one of our client organizations. Our clients kind of run the gamut within the social impact sector. So about 60% nonprofits, and then the remaining 40% split between social enterprises and corporates with a do-good angle to them. You are the project manager on that project. So you're really responsible for all the deliverables that come out throughout the summer and at the end. You get all of the responsibility that comes with that, which is exciting and a little scary, but ultimately leads to, kind of more hands-on work than you can expect at other consulting firms where you're potentially working as part of a larger group and you only really get to see a piece of the problem or the project. In our case, you absolutely get to see and are responsible for 100% of the whole thing. So you kind of, I'd say that the one little caveat to that is that we also run an undergrad program throughout the summer as well, as I mentioned before, and each undergrad is paired with one of our MBA fellows. So if that's something that you're interested in, is getting some management experience, then there's an opportunity for that as well. And of course, we are there to pre-scope that project, manage the relationship with the client. We have on staff support for you all throughout the summer, weekly check-ins, things like that, making sure everything is going smoothly. But like I said, at the end of the day, the project is yours. And I think that's kind of one of the most exciting pieces about the fellowship. The other portion to the summer is, of course, that training piece. So I'm going to go into that a bit in the next slide. So what do these kind of training days look like? So throughout the course of the summer, between 2 weeks of orientation, one at the beginning and then one towards the end of the summer, which we call a reorientation, and then 1 day a week, the other 8 weeks of the summer as well, you will get over 150 hours of training. 70% of that training is kind of in these training sessions or modules that we do with you. So a portion of those are on the spectrum of impact, so kind of looking at different topic areas within the sector and figuring out where your business skills can be kind of best applied. So, things like impact investing, impact assessment, ethical marketing. We use the IDEO model of design thinking. So different kind of areas of interest within social impact. And then the remaining portion of those training sessions are on more kind of personal and professional development. We also do get the opportunity to bring in really great speakers for you guys throughout the summer. These are just some examples of people that we had in last summer. The kind of individual people aren't super important because they will likely, some will be the same, but some will be new for next summer. But what's really important to know is that all of our speakers come in excited to and willing to give you their contact information at the end of each session, ready to follow up later on in the summer or later on after you return to school. They are engaged with us and what we're doing and have volunteered to come and speak with you guys. It's really kind of exciting time to be in this space, and not many people are doing what we're doing. And so people kind of love to come talk to and hear from a room full of really intelligent MBA students who are interested in what they do. And so we're able to bring in really great people, and then actually you get to use them as a resource throughout the rest of your summer and moving forward as well. Kind of an added bonus to those training days. So last summer that was Mondays, with Tuesday through Friday being dedicated to working on your project. But on those Monday training days were also hosted by different people in the sector. So we get to be on site at different organizations within social impact on those days. So you also get the added benefit of talking to the people who work out of whatever space we're in and getting a feel for different organizations and where they're working out of. And somebody asked if the session is going to be recorded, and it is. And I'm planning on posting it on our website and then also sending it out to you guys after the session as well. So kind of to speak more on the consulting piece, these are 4 of our clients from the past summer. They reflect both kind of the different types of clients that we work with, and then also the types of projects that our summer MBA fellows get to do. I will also say that online on our website, we have a great kind of web page that has a bunch of case studies from last summer and all the summers previously. It was one of the kind of internal deliverables that we had our MBA fellows do for us. And it's great. Each case study outlines, who the client was, what the problem was that we were tasked with helping them with, and then how our fellow ended up, working towards achieving that, solving that problem. So if you're interested in kind of more details about specific types of projects, I would definitely first refer you to that case study page. And if there's any that seem super interesting to you or you would be helpful for you to learn more about, then I can also put you in touch with the fellow who worked on that project. But yeah, so I'll just kind of go into one of these because they're fun. So Greyston is a repeat client of ours, actually. We worked with them 2 summers in a row. They are a bakery based up in Yonkers. They're really cool. They are famous for a couple things. One of which is being the bakery that bakes all of the brownies for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So even if you haven't heard of Greyston before, you've likely, hopefully, enjoyed one of their brownies in a pint of half-baked or something. But they also are alternatively famous for their open hiring model. So what they do is that they put a sign up on their door, and the next person who assigns their name is hired, no questions asked. So what that means is that a lot of formerly incarcerated men and women are able to be hired when otherwise they might have a difficult time with that. And so they have used this model really successfully and wanted to do a better job, or kind of any job, of sharing what they do with other organizations. And so what our fellow was tasked with doing was to, helping them create a business case, a business kind of model out of this open hiring policy to, figure out how to market and sell what they do to other organizations so that they can also benefit from using this kind of open hiring method. So briefly with the other ones, Welcoming America is a traditional nonprofit that helps cities become more welcoming to immigrants. We did an earned income strategy with them. The Grace Institute is over 100 years old. They're a nonprofit in New York, and we did an impact assessment for them. And then the Interfaith Food Shuttle was one of our Raleigh clients, and they, they are kind of a food-based nonprofit, and they were launching a new catering kind of arm of what they do, and so we helped them with that go-to-market strategy for their catering. So this is a case study. So it's a little bit harder to do this interactively on the webinar, so I'm going to kind of go over it for you. And if you have any kind of further questions about Grit or about this case study, then feel free to follow up with me afterwards. So Grit was one of our organizations that we worked with a few years ago. They created that wheelchair that you see a picture of that looks a little bit different than perhaps other wheelchairs you've seen before. It has that funny little third wheel in the front. And it's really cool. The way that it's designed by engineering students at MIT, actually, is that it's able to go over terrain that most wheelchairs are unable to. And so, whereas you typically need kind of paved roads and sidewalks for a wheelchair to be able to successfully navigate the streets, this wheelchair can go kind of over more bumpy terrain. So what our fellow was tasked with was helping them figure out, so I should first say that previously they were, they designed this wheelchair with the intention of giving it, distributing it free of charge to developing countries where perhaps they didn't have the same types of paved roads as, communities here in the US. And so what we helped them with doing was helping them create an earned income strategy so they could continue supporting, the distribution of these wheelchairs to communities that couldn't afford them by selling them to communities that could afford to purchase them. And so they decided to target a US market, and we helped them figure out, kind of the best, or, one idea of a target market for people who could use these types of wheelchairs here in the US. So what our fellow was tasked with doing was specifically, doing some research on who a good target audience would be, and then secondarily, the best way to reach them. And so kind of after taking some considerations into account, mainly that if you were buying a new type of wheelchair, you'd likely want to be able to try it out in person. And you'd also want it to be recommended to you by somebody that you trusted. The kind of ultimate way of selling these wheelchairs was going to be through physical therapy offices. And in terms of the types of audience that they were marketing to, they decided that kind of a young person who enjoys the outdoors, perhaps was injured later in life and grew up hiking and wanted to continue doing that, or never had gotten to hike before and wanted to try it out. So this kind of young outdoorsy type was the type of customer that they decided to target to reach. So that's just a brief example of kind of the types of thinking that goes into one of our projects. It seems kind of traditional on the outset, like looking at target markets and ways of reaching them. But kind of a good thing to keep in mind too is the whole kind of intention of the project in the first place, which was this idea of earned income and selling something to one audience while continuing to distribute it free of charge to another audience. So we're not going to try and tackle that whole issue right now, but just kind of this whole concept of earned income is something that our fellows think about often during the summer, especially if they're working with one of our nonprofit clients, but also during our training days as well. And so we like to bring it up throughout the info session too. So that's that. All right, so who should apply? Really I like to say everyone should apply, but in reality, there are some qualities that will make you a better fit for the program than others. Starting with this comfort with ambiguity, I think is really important to highlight. We work with small companies. We are a small company. Even the really big companies we worked with, like the Grace Institute, one of our clients from last summer that was over 100 years old, potentially doesn't have the same types of resources as, organizations that you're used to working with or for. And so being energized by that and excited by that is a good indicator that you would enjoy your summer with us. This does kind of, again, bring up that we do ask you to sign on for the summer before knowing exactly who your client will be. So if you're okay with that, then that's awesome. Kind of the second little part there is this, really high, impeccable standards of professionalism. Of course, that should go without saying, but it's another reminder that you guys get more kind of client-facing time than we do. You're working with your clients 4 days a week. You're really representing the heart of Inspiring Capital. This fellowship is, how we kind of came to be. And so it's really important that we represent ourselves well. And that by extensions means you guys representing us well. So just continuing to do that throughout the summer is really important. And we also just want to hang out with you guys. We kind of, the cohort aspect of the fellowship sometimes I think gets looked over. You're thinking about the consulting work, you're thinking about who your client will be, but, also think about the fact that you do get to, spend your summer with other MBAs who are really excited about the same type of space and work that you are. I'm sure you found your local net impact chapter or social impact consulting group on campus or whatever it is, and that's awesome. And kind of just imagine getting to multiply that by 1,000 in terms of getting to meet other students, not only from your own school, but from across the country that are interested in this type of work and are super excited to be spending their summer doing it. So we really look to form a cohort that will learn from each other informally, formally, use each other's resources, bounce ideas off of each other, and kind of create this community over the summer that we really like to help foster. In terms of impact, this is something that we are really looking to improve upon ourselves and do more of in the upcoming years, but we have kind of taken a stab at measuring our own impact in what we do. So we've, of course, looked at some traditional kind of statistics, but also some that I like to highlight are, so far, our MBAs have reported a big increase in their knowledge of the social impact sector, which is great. But our clients have also reported an increase in kind of knowledge in terms of how they would, if they better understand how to use an MBA skill set. And that is really important to us as well. So far, increases on both accounts there, which is great. So where are they now? These are some of our alums from the past few years. I'm not going to go over each of them one by one, but kind of the big thing to grasp here is that not all of our fellows end up on the same path. We don't expect you to move directly into social impact following graduation. Of course, some of our fellows will and do, and go directly into nonprofit work, but that is not at all kind of what our expectation or our goal is for our fellows. That's what a lot of that personal development, professional development training over the summer, attempts to help with, is to figuring out what your path is, no matter what direction that is. And we need super engaged employees in, at an investment bank just as much as we need engaged employees at a social enterprise. And so we're kind of happy to help you figure out that path, no matter which way it takes you. In terms of hiring internally, we are a small team. Right now, there is 5 of us full-time, likely to be up to around 8 or 9 by the time summer starts, which is really exciting. But that means that we haven't yet had the opportunity to hire back on one of our fellows full-time. I will say that the past few summers, we've been able to hire on MBAs from the summer previously to help us manage the next summer's kind of cohort of fellows in both cities. And so there is opportunities within IC for kind of short-term work. And as we continue to grow and continue to increase the number of cities that we're in, those opportunities will increase as well. And we also do report that about 70% of our alums have gone on to find opportunities through our network. So through us in some way, whether that is one of those speakers whose contact information you kept, or a LinkedIn contact of Nell's, somebody in social impact who, we maybe don't personally know, but are happy to work to give you an introduction on. We love making those connections, and I'll go into that in just a minute, a little bit more. All right, so next steps. The applications are due a week from today at midnight, which is really exciting. It is online. You can find it likely on your university's career sites, but also on our website at inspiringcapital.ly/MBAs. That is my dog, Winston. He needed to be incorporated into the presentation in some way because he is our official mascot, and he's sleeping on my computer, and it's an online application, so I felt it was relevant enough. That's me. Please stay in touch. Happy to follow up with any other questions after the webinar as well. So after that application is due, what does it look like after? So the application itself, that's due December 11th, is super straightforward: resume, cover letter, couple biographical questions. The second stage there is a pre-recorded video interview, kind of meant to take the place of a traditional kind of behavioral phone interview. So again, nothing to stress out about. It just allows you to, schedule it on your own time. It lets us review it on our own time, so it really works out for everyone. But if you have any questions about how that works, then I'm happy to talk you through that a bit more. The third round after that will be a homework assignment and a phone interview. So we'll have you do a little written work that's not meant to take you more than 2 or 3 hours, just to get a sense of your writing style, but also to give you a sense of kind of the thought process that our MBAs go through. We'll kind of join that with a bit of a phone conversation to give everybody a chance to follow up on the assignment, ask questions about it, and then for you to ask us any questions that you have at that point. And then the last stage will be an in-person group interview in New York in kind of early mid-February. And of course, if you can't make it to New York, we'll also be doing those virtually as well. So this is kind of a bit of a follow-up to what I was saying before about, kind of staying connected to us throughout the rest of the year, even after your summer with us has ended. So after the summer is complete, you get to help me with recruiting in the fall, which is really fun, I promise. We're looking forward to doing some kind of webinar 2.0, so a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the topics that we covered over the summer. And then, of course, kind of any help we can with what happens after graduation is something that we're always happy to do and excited about. And then we do have events throughout the year. If you happen to be located in either New York or the Triangle area, you get kind of free attendance and all kinds of fun perks for being alums of our program. All right, and lastly, we also do the recruiting for the National Parks Business Plan Internship, a really awesome program in which you get to do consulting work on site at a national park or monument throughout the U.S. Really neat opportunity. They, kind of my favorite way to describe it in one sentence is you are a good candidate if you take, if you have kind of a Venn diagram where one circle is you love the national parks and you love the outdoors and you love hiking, and the other circle is you love pivot tables. If you find yourself in the overlap between those two circles, then you are likely a good candidate for the National Parks Business Plan Internship. Those applications are also due December 11th. There are no more upcoming live webinars for that program, but we have a recorded webinar up on our website. So feel free to watch that and follow up with me with any questions if you have them. So that's that. So I'm going to go back to my email. But yeah, so that's all I have. I will stop talking at you. And please go ahead and use the chat box and let me know if you have any questions. All right. So our first question here is about how many people we expect to have in this year's cohort. So that's a great question. So we will likely have, I'd say, between 22 and 24 MBAs total. I would say about 12 to 14 of those in New York and about 10 to 12 of those in Raleigh-Durham. So what kind of a feedback process does IC offer? So I'm assuming that this is for throughout the summer in terms of your deliverables and the work, kind of the progress that you're making on your projects. If not, please let me know. But to answer the question in that way, I would say that, so like I said, we've had fellows from the previous summer come on to manage our fellows the next summer. And so those will be your main point of contacts within Inspiring Capital to help you throughout your summer and make sure that you're staying on track. So, we give you kind of a project charter at the beginning of the summer, which lays out what your deliverables will be and when they're expected. And so, we'll be there to kind of make sure that those happen and happen well throughout the summer. And that kind of Inspiring Capital previous fellow will be your touch point for all of that. So we had a question about identifying partners for projects. So that's a great question. So our clients come through a few different types of streams. So the first, I would say, is really just people who we know, people in our network. We, after 4 years of doing this, we've, had a lot of touch points with people that have said, we're not quite ready, or we just don't have the right project yet, or things like that. And so that's kind of the first pool that we'll go to is, people who already know about us or in our circle, and perhaps this is the year for them. The kind of second route there is that we're trying to grow a bit more of our, more kind of partnerships with larger funders or organizations who work perhaps with a bunch of different nonprofits or things like that. And then kind of that third way we're reaching clients is just cold outreach or dream clients, people that we'd love to work with. And we have somebody on staff who's working on kind of doing all of that. It's a sales process. So all of our clients are paying us. We don't do any pro bono work. So part of that is kind of more of a traditional sales process in terms of reaching out and, finding people who we think that we could work really well with. So the process for how fellows are paired with projects, also a great question that comes up often. It's very valid. So like I said, we do ask you to sign on for the summer before knowing who your client will be. That being said, we do send out a survey to you in the spring and, get a sense of both kind of your skills, expertise, where you feel really comfortable in, where you'd like to grow. And we do our matching kind of based more on project type than interest area. So kind of what I mean by that is we want to make sure that our, projects are set up for success. So we're going to put you on a type of project in which you can be successful doing the work itself, as opposed to you perhaps would ideally love to work with an education nonprofit. And if that works out, then awesome, but that's probably not going to be the number one thing that we look at. So I do really like to say up front that if you know that there's a specific area within social impact that you'd like to work, then perhaps we're not the perfect fit for you, just because we do work with a whole range of clients, and we're going to be looking more at kind of your skill set in terms of project type as opposed to your passion for a specific cause. But we kind of have no higher stake. Nobody has a higher stake in it being a good matching process than we do. So we think really thoughtfully about it and have so far had a really kind of high success rate in projects going well and the matching going well. So we think really carefully about how that's done. had a question similar to that one, but also if we ever have multiple fellows on one project. No, we've never had multiple fellows on the same project. There has been an occasion in which a client has had more than one project, and so they've had more than one fellow, if that makes sense. We worked with Goodwill a couple of years ago, and they had kind of two separate things that they wanted done, and so we had two fellows working with Goodwill. But we will never have two MBAs working together on the same project. We will have MBAs and undergrads working together. Let's see. All right. So in terms of placement in NYC versus Raleigh-Durham, in your application, you are able to, well, kind of the way that the application is default set up is that we kind of suggest that you leave it open to either city. That being said, if you know that you have to be in New York or you have to be in Raleigh, or you really strongly prefer one versus the other, then we do have kind of check boxes on the application that say, I'm only applying to be in New York, or I'm only applying to be in North Carolina. If you do leave it open, then what it's really going to come down to is that kind of project matching. And so that's kind of another good reason to leave both cities open for consideration. If you are able to be flexible and be in either place, you know, it doubles the number of clients kind of open to you in terms of matching. But obviously understand if one city makes sense for you more than the other. And so we do have the option there for you to be specific about which city you are applying for. Work-life balance, that's a really good question. So consulting can be very demanding, that's true, but I would say that the work-life balance in Inspiring Capital is pretty good. You know, we, at least in our training days, those are run kind of 8:30 to 4:30, 9 to 5. They usually end in a happy hour. Those are not meant to be kind of all-day affairs. You know, the rest of those 4 days, it's kind of up to you, you know, how you manage your time. So as long as the work's getting done, then we honestly don't really care when you're doing it. You know, that'll depend a little bit on if you're going on site to your client office, you know, kind of what hours they are asking you to be there. You know, some of your clients will have on-site space for you to work out of. Some of your clients may not. And so we have our own workspace in both cities that you can come work out of as an option. And I'll say that over the summer, we're not working hours outside of, you know, kind of 9 to 6. And so we're not really expecting you to do that either. So I would say the balance is good. I've never really heard a complaint in terms of that. So hopefully that answers that. Yeah, sure. Okay. So speaking more to how we measure impact throughout a project and when it's over. So that's a really good question. And that is, like I said, something that we're really working on, and potentially even, you know, having somebody come and do a contract with us just to specifically measure impact, because we know what a huge thing it is. We do impact assessments for other organizations, and we need to do one for ourselves. But kind of currently what we're doing, you know, is I'd say first and foremost, really starting from the beginning by making sure that we are creating projects that can be successfully accomplished by the time the summer is over. You know, we never want to be the consultants that come in, make a recommendation, and then leave without any kind of setup or expectations for if that recommendation is going to be able to be successful. And so that's why we do kind of mandate very real, tangible deliverables, whether that's a business plan or a PowerPoint slide deck for investors, or, you know, something that can actually be utilized by our organizations once we leave. And we do kind of, after the summer, informal check-ins with our clients, you know, both to see if there's another project for us to work with them on the following summer, and to see how our fellows' work has gone so far. So far, a lot of kind of the follow-up and assessment of the work that's been done has happened somewhat informally. You know, we're also kind of thinking about ways to formalize that as well. TBD, but definitely something that we're thinking about and something that we're really intentional about when we are creating the projects to begin with. And kind of, all right, so lastly, so far, describing the culture in Inspiring Capital. So that's another great question. I'd say that definitely have an interesting combination of this young startup culture, but also now with a dose of we know what we're doing and we're really excited about it. So, you know, we are still hungry and we're busy and we're working a lot, but we're really proud of what we're doing. And so that I think we kind of reflect that as well. You know, we're really seeing ourselves as experts in this space. And I think that's reflected in our culture, if that makes sense. But, you know, we like to have fun. We come to the happy hours with you guys, whether you like it or not. No, hopefully you guys like it. But we do, you know, we are hustling. We all have probably too many plates spinning at once, but we really all are excited to be at IC, and we want to be working at Inspiring Capital if we didn't, you know, really stand by the mission, and are excited to be kind of running this cohort again and doing everything else that we do the rest of the year. So really, really enjoyable place to work for sure. And yeah, and then there's a question about a specific school where if the job was posted yet. And I'll just say I don't know off the top of my head if our application is posted there yet, but you know, you can go on our website, inspiringcapital.ly/MBAs, and you'll be able to link directly to the application and just apply directly through our site. All right. So I'm happy to stay logged on for a few more minutes. Those are all the questions that I had thus far. So if your question has been answered, then feel free to log off. Otherwise, I'll stick around. But thank you so much. Look forward to seeing all your applications. Please let me know if you have any further questions. You know, happy to speak to you afterwards as well. So thank you.